moments near. Your voice is loud, it's crystal clear. Kiwi dreams and hopes collide. Choose the ones who'll stand with pride. It's in the ballot where we belong. Every vote builds a nation strong. Your council, your board, your mayor in line. Together we shape this land divine. The future's written in your hand. A chance to guide and take a stand. Community rising, hearts aligned. In together we shape this land divine. It's in the ballot we belong. Every vote builds a nation strong. Your council, your board, your mayor in line. Together we shape this land divine. There's a fortune in your hand, a chance to guide and take a stand. Community rising, hearts aligned. In this moment, powers redefined. It's in the ballot where we belong. Every vote builds a nation strong. Your council, your board, your mayor in line. Together we shape this land divine. It's in the ballot where we belong. Every vote builds a nation strong. Your council, your board, your mayor in line. Together we shape this land divine. From hills to shores, every
And good evening. We've got no producer to run the show, but these candidates here stand for the Porirua-Tawa constituency of the Greater Wellington Regional Council are vying for your first preference votes. But with every election, there's one thing stepping in their way, and that's your vote. And coming here live from the Tawa's Anglican Church, where here is our lovely Tawa home. Unfortunately, we do not have Lynn of Tawa as our question host. It would be nice if she was here, but I'm very sure that I can do a very satisfying job of both being Selwyn and Tenica tonight. I'd like to, first before we get to our candidates, we do have an apology from Granville Gaskell, who cannot make it as clashed with the Patanui Residents Association meeting. So that's something we've been asked to pass on that apologies. But first up, let's get to our candidate Claire here, who will give 1 minute opening statement of why she should get the first preference vote to be the next regional councillor for the Porirua-Tawa constituency.
Thanks so much. Kia ora. I'm standing for the Greater Wellington Regional Council because I deeply care about our region's future. Council decisions affect all of us every day. It's about our management of our harvest, it's about our transport systems, it's the environmental issues, it's about making sure that our port is an economic port and adding to our community. I'm also from Porirua. I've brought my children up here. I've worked throughout the region in the public sector mostly, but also in the private sector. I bring senior leadership experience in business, central and local government, transport capability and innovation, defence and police, and proven government experience and fiscal responsibility. My priorities will be reliable, affordable, well-connected systems, transport systems, sustainable, resilient development, protection and restoration of waterways and harbours, coordinated emergency management, wise long-term investment decisions, and rates that deliver visible results.
Okay, and next up we've got Phil.
Good evening, Phil Rhodes is my name, and my first interest in the regional council was sparked when I was the subdivision manager at Porirua City Council, and I used to see quite regularly the silt runoff from Belmont Park, which travelled through all the council's drains and quite often blocked them up and all ended up in the harbour, and I used to get quite cross about that. And so here I am now, and with a bee in my bonnet about it a bit, and I'd like to do something about it and accelerate the planting of Belmont Park in particular to help save the harbour. And I've had plenty of experience with harbours in more northern parts of the island, like Wongapawa, Kaipara Harbour, Hokianga, and other harbours there where they've been heavily silted up over the last sort of 50 or 60 years. And the ecology in those harbours is pretty dead, and the recreational value is pretty much nil. And I don't want to see the same thing happening to the Porirua Harbour. I'm the principal development engineer at the Hutt City Council at the moment, and I've had a great career as a professional land surveyor. And so there's many other issues that the regional council's involved in, which I'm quite interested in as well. There's whitireia, there's forestry slash there, and stream health around the harbour. I've all got quite great concerns about how little work's being done by the regional council on these matters around the district, and I'd quite like to sort of join the council and help to sort of fix some of these issues. So that's me.
Okay, thank you for that. Now let's get to the fun part of the show. We've got the bots questions. Now, because we've only got two candidates here who have put their feet to the instant ballot fire, we're going to do things a little bit differently. So when a candidate picks a box number, we're going to get both candidates to answer it, so that then otherwise candidates might go through try to get extra button cards. So we thought it might be better that if we get in theory, you could look at it this way: they're butting into each other's answers. It could be a good way of describing it. So Claire, you get to go first. Between box number 1 and 28, what box number would you like to pick?
7.
7. Yes, I think it's every 7 years you get a new fresh set of blood cells or something with body redevelopment. Now we've got G for golf, obviously not for, our lovely mate in the White House. I don't think he would like to stand in any of the golf courses within the Porirua-Tawa constituency, but you never know. What steps will you take to protect the Te Awarua o Porirua Harbour and improve water quality?
Okay, transmission gully and urban development. Transmission gully and urban developments have caused serious environmental harm, especially to Awarua o Porirua Harbour. There's been poor planning, weak enforcement, and repeated wastewater failures. And this shows that the system isn't protecting people or place. If elected, I'll fight for strong environmental protection, enforceable consents, and independent oversight. I'll oppose development that increases flood risks or damages our harbour. The Regional Council must use its powers to protect our environment, not just to enable growth.
Okay, Phil.
Well, as I alluded to before, I thought that the most immediate and most productive thing to do to fix the problems in the harbour is to plant Belmont Park. It's a very, very large land area. Riparian planting, and it's pretty slow, and there are many valleys and scours and that sort of thing you can see along the hills there that need planting. So I think that'd be the most effective thing that we can do. But there are plenty of other things to do, like in the stormwater network, there's plenty of stormwater drains that feed dirty water into Porirua stream, and there are a variety of ways of cleaning up the water that flow through those pipes off the roads and things like that. I don't want to blame developers. They get a heavy-handed sort of care, I suppose, from the regional council and local developments and things. So, but there are plenty of other places around the city that contribute a lot of silt to the harbour that we can quite easily target and invest in.
Okay. And Phil, what box number would you like to pick?
Number 9.
Number 9, okay. Okay, we have Jay for Juliet. How will you embed climate change resilience into GWRC's planning for this region?
Well, there are already a lot of things underway, of course, investing in electric buses and things like that. But there are many things probably not thought about. I mean, we could put solar panel arrays all over the place to reduce the power demands in the regional council offices and promote the use of solar panels in other places there that the councils have some inputs into. The regional council's got a strong desire to make all transport options electric over the next 10 years, so you've got to be applauded for that. And they're working on that as fast as they can, I believe, with the investment of buses are pretty heavy duty and it'll take some time. I think the target is 2030 to have the entire bus fleet electric. So that's really good progress. And so as the councillors, we're there to support it and make sure that the finance is not diverted onto other things to, reduce the effort going in there.
Okay, clear.
Yeah, better use of technology, making sure we do, where we can, use green solutions for everything we do. But I think we have to push for stronger climate resilience by planning better as to what we're doing within this region. It's really important that we enforce coastal planning, that we have transparent climate risk mapping and public access to hazard data. In the past, that hasn't been available to people and some bad decisions have been made, but we've also allowed for decisions which will impact on people in the long run, and we continue to do so. Just letting people build where they shouldn't build, building in flood zones, building in areas where liquefaction is a possibility. We really have to get serious about climate change and prepare for the future. I also think we need to prioritise infrastructure upgrades in high-risk zones, especially around the harbour and Pawahatanui Inlet.
Okay. Claire, what box number?
12.
12. Okay. We have M for Mike. Do you support reviewing council spending priorities before turning to further rates increases?
As a new council, we have to review the spending priorities. We can't just accept the decisions that were made before. It is a new council. There has to be new priorities. I don't expect us to take over the role of management, but as governors, we do need to look at fiscal responsibility in those priorities. We've got a lot of pressure coming our way, and I think some hard decisions have to be made. Okay,
Phil.
I support reviewing council's spending priorities. There's a lot of churn in the system at the moment, like, government withdrawing funding to the regional council last year, sort of puts a brake on a lot of things they're intending to do. So in order to be prudent about your spending there, you've always got to have a bit of spare sort of, head in the network, I suppose, to account for like these sort of changes that are sudden and unpredictable. I see the government's debt position is not a bad state, and they generally seem to take a fairly conservative path through their financial strategy. But nevertheless, it's a job that you can never let up on, reviewing council's budgets on a very regular basis.
Okay. Phil, what box number?
28.
28. Okay, let's see what's in good old 28. Okay, we've got A, B for the All Blacks. Beyond finance, what do you see as GWRC's biggest overall risk and how would you deal with it?
Well, there's a pile of them there. One of the ones that I think is a big risk is not having a good relationship with central government, because governments come and go, and it seems to be from just general observation around the country. If you have a good relationship with government ministers, especially the Minister for Finance and the Minister for Infrastructure in particular, seems to be that there is some advantage in having good relationships with them. And if you get offside with the central government, it could be quite a penalty, or potentially quite a penalty, which could have serious financial risks to your organisation. So that'd be my one for a start.
Okay, clear.
I think our biggest risk is that we have a lot of responsibility and we have to really think about how that's going to be paid for. Central government for decades has been pushing costs back down onto local government and expecting us to continue to deliver. Unfortunately, it's been generation after generation of councils and of central government that have not invested in our underground infrastructure. It's a really big risk for us because there's a high expectation that we ensure, for example, that we provide good, clean water, and yet we have rotting infrastructure all around us. I don't think we can carry on this way, and I also think that while we need to get on really well with central government, we need to call them out on some of these decisions that have been made and push for them to be fair about what they're doing.
Okay, Claire, what box number?
16.
16. Yes, got all the current driver's license age. And as we got R for Romeo. How will you ensure a reliable drinking water supply and manage water allocation for future growth?
Okay, water's our most valuable resource and we're not treating it that way. Leaks across the region waste millions of litres daily. That's unacceptable and we need urgent investment in infrastructure and we need accountability. I think Metro Water is a step in the right direction, but it must be empowered to act, to fix leaks, to plan for droughts and to protect supply. We need to introduce smart metering to understand usage and detect problems early. I'll advocate for a future-focused water strategy that prioritises resilience, transparency and equity. Safe, reliable drinking water must be guaranteed for every household now and in generations to come. But central government also needs to come to the party. It can't just sit back and ask the region to take on more debt. This is a huge push on us now because that is the only choice, which is to increase the debt. One of my concerns about that is that it's actually also going to shift the cost of water off the balances of the city and district councils. And I would hope that they'll use that gap to spend more money on other things.
Okay, and Phil? I guess at the end of the day, it's a question about having the money available when we need a further increase in the dam storage levels. And I know a lot of work's been done by the Regional Council over the past few years to find alternative sites for water storage, reservoirs and things, but we need to make sure there that suitable funding's put aside for that because they're hugely expensive things with long consent periods and stuff. So the effort needs to be there and planned so that it's not going to cause water shortages if we have sort of climate change type dry years and that sort of thing. But also it's going to be about the levels of service for the new Metro Water and ensuring that they don't lose focus on providing the extra storage that we will need in the future.
And a comment that Nick would be very good relating to, that Claire mentioned earlier about smart water meters. I think the insurance industry would absolutely love you for it because a dumb water meter is very happy at racking up the bill, but when it goes off at 4 a.m. in the morning, it will continue flooding the house. Yep, so yeah. Phil, what box number? 2. 2. Okay. We got Z for Zulu. How would you strengthen relationships with central government and councils to get the best outcome for the decisions made at the GWRC council table?
I think that like a close relationship with the government is really essential and they need to know what, excuse me, the regional council is doing, most of the time. Because the regional council is looking after bulk water supply, REMO, emergency management, and all these things that affect all of Wellington, a very large area and large population. And unless the government knows what the regional council is doing, then that can lead to undesirable consequences. So I think that close relationship and awareness is very important.
Okay, Claire.
Yeah, we need a constructive and respectful relationship with central government, but we also need to have the courage to stand our ground when local government is being sidelined. Local government contributes over $20 billion annually to the New Zealand's economy and delivers major productivity gains through infrastructure investment. Yet central government continues to demand more with less, ignoring ageing infrastructure, climate risk and environmental pressures. The way forward is collaboration across councils and with central government to reduce duplication, share costs and deliver smarter, more resilient outcomes. It is about sound financial governance. It isn't just about balancing budgets, but it is about protecting public value and enabling long-term growth. So that relationship is really important, but they have to stop using local government as a whipping boy.
So true. So true. It's a bit like, do as I say while your hands are being told behind your back, or as the great one likes to sit and say, the majority of business revenue is by FPOS, but the government is telling you can only take cash and you can only take payments in $1 coins. Okay, Claire.
Gosh, we're starting to run out of numbers, aren't we?
Oh, we've got a long way to go.
I know, but I've got to remember, 23.
Yes, we can do 23. That's a good choice. Okay, and we've got AA for AA batteries. What is the biggest challenge facing the Porirua-Tawa area?
I'd say it's affordability. The rates are quite high for around the area, and that's causing a lot of pressure. But we can't not afford to do a lot of things. We can't not afford to do the best we can with water. We can't not afford upgrades to public transport if we're supposed to meet the expectations of the public, but also to get cars off the road. And my hot one really is we can't afford to not provide environmental protection for our harbour, for our reserves, for the inlet, for our birds, for our flora and our fauna. So we have to afford all of those things, but it's at what level do we afford that? How are we going to get that balance to make the right decisions for the public and for future generations?
Okay, Phil.
I think it could be that the biggest one is like ageing pipes. A lot of Porirua's pipes are laid in the 50s and 60s and stuff out of asbestos cement pipes and things, and now reaching the end of their life. But, the council's spending a lot of money on the network at the moment to reduce overflows and providing some resilience in it. But I think the biggest issue is really the harbour, because Porirua's identity is really closely aligned with the harbour. And if it had ever disappeared because it silted up, it would be the most tragic thing that could ever happen, and easily preventable by some investment and people taking care of their own city. So I think at the moment that one is the biggest challenge, because so little's been done at the moment. But it's coming, but at the moment it's the biggest problem.
You've managed to make me think of, like, it could get that much silt, you could walk from Parramatta to Tutahi Bay, and that even that would be nice, that would not really be nice.
We often think that the next golf course will actually be on Powatahanui Inlet.
Oh, I don't think the mud crabs or whatever they are under there would like that.
It's got a paddy field on it at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, Phil, what box number? 22. 22. Oh, thanks for choosing your birthday. Okay, we got I for India. Okay, how can the council contribute to civil defence and emergency management in our area?
Well, I don't know what else it can do that's sort of new, because we've got Remo sitting there, which is sort of, part of the regional council, and they've got a very good system. They've got a great website that's very helpful and very illuminating about what people should do in an emergency and what type of emergencies are possible around Wellington. All they can do is continue to invest substantially in Remo and ensure that it's fully resourced as we go forward, just in case we kind of get the big one.
Okay, Claire.
Okay, so regional civil defence and emergency management, of course, essential. Floods and earthquakes are a given in my professional capacity, so this is something I think about on a daily basis. I've been involved in major events going back to Cyclone Bowler. I was involved in Cyclone Gabrielle, Cyclone Hale, the Christchurch earthquake, and other unplanned emergencies. I'm sorry to say that emergency services and local government still lack a common operating picture during crises. That means that events like we had in Hawke's Bay, the Cyclone Gabrielle, or a major earthquake such as in Christchurch, there is no single coordinated view of what's happening on the ground. That's very worrying. If elected, I'll advocate for a complete review of how we plan and manage emergencies in our region and push for a unified real-time response system connected to emergency management services that protects lives and communities. This really matters. We have no choice.
Okay, what box number, Claire?
17.
17.
That's the hardest question to come up with a number.
Number. I know, that's one you cannot have pre-prepared notes for. Sorry, and at age 17, you can join the army or join the Fed Force, but you can't be deployed overseas. And apparently on your rank slide, there's a star put on there, so you can't get into the bars.
No, not really.
Things I remember from the ATC days when I was part of 49 Squadron on the Kapiti Coast. Now we've got V for Violet. Are you comfortable with the way the council manages its debt position?
I am actually. I think that the regional council does manage its debt position well. I think that they're pretty middle of the road across the country in terms of their debt. And one of the big assets we have is Centreport. And Centreport does actually provide income for us that reduces the rates by 4.5%. I think that they've been conservative, which is great and what I would expect. So I think they're managing it well, and I hope that we can continue to manage it well despite the pressures that are coming down upon us as we move forward.
Okay, Phil.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. It's I think the current debt is about 50% of the overall limit, which is a very conservative position to be in, and I kind of quite like it at the moment, because if there's a major emergency in Wellington, like an earthquake, tsunami, or something like that, there's quite a bit of extra borrowing room that they've got in order to sort of help repair Wellington and get it back on its feet. So I think it's a very stable and sound position that they're in at the moment.
Okay. Phil, what box number?
21.
21. And who remembers the voting age being 21? Oh, yeah, that's a bit more recent. No, my 97-year-old grandmother first voted at age 21 in 1949. Yeah, but yes, and she's never voted under her maiden name because it was the same year she got married.
Same as me.
Oh,
Not the same year, but...
But like you've only ever voted under your married name, not under your maiden name.
I've never voted under my maiden name.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, we got E for Echo. What is your plan to improve the reliability and frequency of Metlink train and bus services for Porirua and Tawa commuters?
Well, the reliability and frequency of Metlink trains is pretty dependent on KiwiRail's progress with upgrading the network at the moment. And you don't have to go far to find out they're upgrading substations around the place, doing a lot of track work and things to increase that reliability and to be able to offer more frequent train services there. So I guess it's a waiting game, but like a lot of these things, it's about collaboration with these other agencies, keeping the public informed about what's going on, and still keeping in touch with community boards and such like to get people's concerns, and trying to get them in the near future, once Kiwi Rail's network's upgraded, making sure that it's an improvement on the past. But the bus network seems to be operating pretty well at the moment with a high level of customer satisfaction, and the removal of that or withdrawal of the government funding for a lot of station upgrades and bus stop upgrades last year was probably a bit of a blow for them, and we'll just have to hope that that money be forthcoming in the future when the economic conditions allow it.
Fingers crossed. Claire.
Yeah, I agree with Phil on this one. A lot is going to depend, though, on the public use of public transport. And if we want to keep the buses and the trains going, we actually do have to use them. The regional council tells me on Mondays and Fridays, for some reason, we're not using public transport. I guess people are choosing not to go to town on those days. But I think we need to think about what our communities need and what the outreach is. So if you look at an area like Tawa, they have been trialling the small on-demand buses, and that's apparently working really well. And I think we've got to be open to trying new ways of doing things, not just sticking to the old ways. But use is really important. It's basic economics. If you don't use a system, then they'll take it away from you. So we have to expect people to use it and encourage them to use public transport.
And I can certainly say Wednesday is the worst day to drive from Newtown to Granada North. Wednesday is the worst day of it.
Because everyone goes to work that day.
Yeah, and it's the day where I think the most people drive into work. Yeah. You know, Claire, what box number?
24.
No problem. Okay, we've got C for Campbell. How will you ensure that Porirua and Tawa's communities have a strong voice in regional decisions?
I think we've got to connect better with some of the residents' associations, but the residents' associations, in my experience, don't always connect well with the rest of their communities. So somehow we have to get out to the wider communities, whether it's youth or whether it's diverse communities. And I've thought about this quite a lot, because if you're dealing with Māori and Pacifica, you have to find ways to communicate with them and for us to get the information out to them. Now, that might mean attending community events as opposed to attending residential meetings. It might mean using social media a little bit more just to get some short messages out, short, crisp messages. It might mean using online polls, but there's lots of things we could do. You can stream and people might watch, but I think we've just got to be better connected with our communities and know that we serve a very diverse community.
Okay, Phil.
I think it's about collaboration. The regional council's got a role to establish networks and for regional issues and things like that. And it's really about collaboration with local community boards and community organisations, and also the individuals in the community as well. So I'm aware that some councillors around the country don't sort of turn up to meetings that much, and seem to be fairly disinterested in having close contact with the community. I'm not that sort of person. I'm sure Claire's not either. And that'd be it's a small measure, but I'd be committed to turning up to 100% of all meetings around the community in order to sort of hear people's views and concerns and things, and act on them as a councillor, and take these issues back to the table and the solutions that people have to offer as well.
And actually, you've mentioned a good point. So my dad and my uncle are currently in the UK to trace down family relatives. They are currently closer to a council in the Horowhenua District Council than where my dad actually owns his property, his two properties in the Horowhenua District. So it's quite funny how they're closer to this councillor than the councillor's actually to the council at the moment. Yeah, this one has permanently moved to Scotland, but he's coming in remotely for his meetings. Yeah. Phil, what box number? 20. And that was it one of our drinking and voting ages at one point in time? Okay, we got A for Alpha. Do you support political party endorsements of local government candidates?
I don't. I think, the individual councillors need to have their own voice and their own inputs and things, free of external inputs and things. And when I lived in Auckland, I've lived most of my life in Auckland, and the Auckland Council was kind of hijacked by the Citizens and Ratepayers group. And I think it was about 8 out of 13 or 14. And Auckland was held to ransom by that group, and because they did block voting all the time, and actually held Auckland's progress back. So I kind of use that as a benchmark for, having a view about this. And I'm dead against political party inputs in local bodies.
Okay, clear.
Well, I'm standing as an independent for exactly the reasons that Phil talks about. I actually don't support political parties being involved in local government either. It's actually about the community voice. It's not about some national agenda. I don't believe it's about party lines. And I think it's wrong to actually be ruled by party lines instead of by good policy and good sense. I don't think it should be about what's best for the party brand. I really think it should be independent. When I first came to Wellington, I couldn't believe, and I was in Hawke's Bay, how dominant party politics were in Wellington, because we didn't have that in Hawke's Bay. Having said that, though, the regional council was somewhat dominated by federated farmers, so.
might explain something we talked about earlier in the conversation. Okay, what box number, Claire?
4.
4. Okay, we've got H for hotel. How accessible is the current GWRC, and what steps would you take to improve its accessibility if needed?
Yeah, so I don't think it's inaccessible, but if we think about whether Wellington's accessible, which is probably a different question, for a lot of people it's not so accessible, particularly if they think they're going to drive into Wellington and find a parking place, because they probably won't. So that leaves you with live streaming, which should have captions, and that should be standard, along with screen reader compatibility. I think it's really important to have that. I also really want to see plain language summaries of the things that we're discussing. More words does not necessarily mean more sense. Keep it really simple. Tell people what we're actually thinking about. I've heard that there are some papers that are going up that are 80 to 180 pages long. I don't think that anyone has the time to read those sorts of things. So you've got to have simple summaries. So that's what I think we need to do, and we need to be much better at talking to the community and getting out to the community. I can't see why we shouldn't have regional meetings in hubs. Why do we always have to have them in Wellington? We should get out.
Yeah. Phil?
Well, I think it's pretty accessible if you've got a computer and the internet connection. I'm regularly on the Regional Council's website, tracking stuff that's going on, and I find it very informative and things then like the snapper card access and stuff, and the train timetable access and bus timetables. They're very accessible and very clear and things like that. It's done a great job there, but there's always room for improvement. And as I said before, councillors need to sort of step up and attend meetings all the time there, and then pass on what the regional council is doing to people in the community and trade ideas and things like that. The regional council seems to do a lot sort of under the radar a little bit. They're doing a lot of flood control and other sort of stuff there that's sort of helping to, improve the resilience of the city, but they don't actually communicate a lot of that there. So I think accessibility is really about increased website presence, monitoring, keeping people up to date with what's going on. And there's always room for improvement there. So, yeah.
And you're certainly right about the regional council, considering the rates bill slides under the radar with the city council's rates bills. Yeah. Okay. Phil, what box number?
17.
I'm sorry, that's been taken, but if you'd like the voting age of 18, I can give you that. 5, that's fine. The age that we can start school at. Okay, we've got S for Sierra. How will you ensure GWRC is prepared for climate change impacts like flood mitigation, and what priorities will you give it?
Well, I know that we've got a flood model over most of Wellington, or most of the urban areas in Wellington, and that's a very useful thing for preparing for the effects of climate change and serious storm events and things. Not sure whether we're doing enough, because when I was sort of researching what the regional council does in terms of flood storage and stuff, they're doing flood management schemes over in the Wairarapa, but not really doing much for Tawa. And all the flat part of Tawa west of the railway line is subject to flooding, and the flood models for Wellington were upgraded last year to a 35% increase in rainfall intensity, which pretty much raises the flood levels by 200, 300, 400 mils. But I don't see much sort of planning happening in response to that. So that's an issue that if elected, I'll be sort of taking up with the council to accelerate some attention being paid to additional flood defences to help Tawa out, and trying to avoid the thing that happens in New Zealand a lot. We wait for an emergency and suffer the damage and spend 3 times on repairs what we should have spent on prevention. So that's the sort of task that I'd sort of take on.
Sounds like stormwater storage tanks might be an option. Yeah. Claire.
Yeah, so flooding in Tawa and Porirua Basin is a growing risk. So smarter stormwater planning, stronger coordination and targeted investment are essential. One of the things that I'm aware of is that we don't keep our flood hazard mapping up to date, and it's not coordinated actually across the country, and there's a lack of ownership in terms of who owns the floodwater mapping. So when I make inquiries about it, I thought that the Greater Wellington Regional Council would have it. I was then told that NEMO was doing it, and then I was told that it was actually Wellington Water, which is actually who it turned out has been doing the mapping, but it's also inconsistent in terms of when they're doing it and how they're doing it. And then on top of that, if you end up being where it's been asserted that you're in a flood zone area, you've got to go to another government department to argue your case if it's not there. So I believe there should be coordinated flood hazard mapping throughout the country. Somebody should take responsibility so that when emergency services actually need to respond, we know which maps to be looking at.
Yes, it does seem to feel like being passed around the buck for what you've just described it as. Yeah. Claire, what box number?
3.
Okay. We got T for telephone. How will you balance growth and intensification with protecting natural areas and cultural heritage in the region?
Okay, so I think we need to protect our natural areas, and I must admit I was really upset when I saw housing being built on the edge of the Porirua-Tawa Inlet, and even more upset last week when I went to the Porirua-Tawa Residents Association to hear that rubbish had been thrown over the fence from one of those houses, including the pest control trap that they had worked so hard to pay for, one of the traps. So I think that area and other parts of Porirua, particularly around the harbour and the inlet, are prime examples of ecosystems that have suffered due to poor planning, housing and infrastructure. I also spent, my husband and I spent quite a lot of time fighting against a development with Duck Creek, and we know what the difference has been since that development went into the inlet and with the silk. So I think we have to agree that growth is important. There has to be intensification, but we also need to think about how we do that and be a lot smarter. We've got to protect our natural and cultural heritage. There is no going back, and we have to make sure that development is climate resilient and ecologically sound.
Okay, Phil.
Well, I'd like to see something that's been around for decades in New Zealand. A certain number of people, probably far-sighted, have said that we should actually prevent development in hazard-prone areas. And our powers that be have sort of decided that retiring areas from development in perpetuity is sort of a bad thing, and so we've been a bit timid in that respect, and so we kind of identify the hazards and put these little layers on our district plan maps and things, but we still allow the Resource Management Act to consider developments to happen in those areas. And we should front up with this and actually actively do the prohibition where development is sort of unwise or unsafe. I think the Regional Council's been doing a good job though, because in the last sort of decade, they've been putting a lot of pressure on developers and the district councils and city councils to retain the stream network. So all those little streams around the place here, they are protected there, and development has to happen around them, so they're all protected. And that's a departure from the old sort of cut and fill days when all the valleys were filled in and the hills were cut down to fill them. We don't do that anymore in Wellington. So that's a big advance in our land development practices and retaining the health of our streams and rivers. Yeah, that would be me.
Okay, Phil, what box number? Yeah, we can do 6. Definitely trucking along with these questions. Okay, we've got B for Bravo. How will you stand up for your community interests if it differs from your own position?
I'm quite sympathetic with that sort of position about standing up for your community's interests, because I found in my life there that your own position is often benefited by having other people's inputs and listening to other people, and you should never sort of think that you're so great or so knowledgeable that nobody else's or everybody else's views and stuff don't count. So if the community has strong views about something, that should always be taken into account, and very unwise politician to ignore the contributions of the community, I think.
Okay, clear.
Well, over my career, I've been in a position of saying never assume what the community thinks or what the community wants. But as a public servant, you serve under various stripes, and you learn very quickly that your personal views are secondary and must be put aside to those that you serve. And I don't see it as being any different with the council. I learnt, though, about diversity of communities when I was with the Wellington Regional Chamber of Commerce as the Chief Executive. And a lot of people thought that they were incredibly right-wing. But I found out firsthand that they're as diverse as any other community, and you just certainly cannot assume what the business community will think along the way. So I think respecting democratic viewpoints isn't just democratic, it's essential to build trust and to make good policy.
Okay, clear. What box number?
2.
Already been taken, but we can do 1.
1.
And just remember, when you get your voting papers, you've got to start with ranking number 1. Okay, we've got F for Foxtrot. How will you make public transport more affordable and accessible for families, students and seniors?
All right, so public transport should be reliable, safe and affordable, and it needs to be affordable for everyone, including for the ratepayers. But right now, Greater Wellington faces a $130 million shortfall after central government declined to co-fund more than 40 projects, including seismic strengthening, safer stations, better lighting, accessibility and upgrades. So instead of passing those costs on to onto fare hikes, I would fight for fairer funding from central government. Wellington receives less public transport funding per capita than Auckland, Waikato or Canterbury. So that raises real questions for me about equity. So we need a better deal to keep fares affordable and explore targeted discounts that encourage more people to use public transport, especially on Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah.
Yes, as Claire said, you know, the Regional Council short of a bit of money, and they had a very detailed and comprehensive plan to make the buses in particular more accessible for people, and that included improvements to bus stops and the buses themselves and everything like that, and it seemed like a high worth a high value kind of approach. So we probably just got to wait and see on that one there. But I don't have a problem subsidising student bus fares and train fares and having them free. And other groups as well. Senior citizens have got the gold card and free use during the day, so they're probably already reasonably well catered for. But the community services card holders and stuff like that, they deserve a break as well. And, you know, public transport's such a key thing for them because they've got to go to work and they don't enjoy the sort of maybe 2 cars per household a lot of us other people have there. So we can't lose sight of the importance of these sort of community benefits that arise from making things more affordable anyway.
Okay. And Phil, what box number?
13 or something?
Yeah, we can do 13. Okay. We got Y for yellow. Do you support live streaming all council, committee and workshop meetings so the community can see decisions being made?
Yeah, I do support live streaming. It's just another way of being accessible to the community and keeping the community in touch with what's going on. But I see with the Porirua City Council, they probably only get about 5 people listening, tuning in there. So preaching to a small audience. I don't know about the all, because I think the council's got the right and the need to actually hold private meetings or publicly excluded meetings, because there's all sorts of private and confidential issues that sort of crop up that council have to deal with that do not need to be broadcast sort of beyond the room.
You probably don't want to end up being on a hot mic like Morris Williams ended up being one time. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. Live streaming, but yes, commercial reasons, privacy matters, staff matters that really shouldn't be aired in public. Yeah, we don't have the same rules that we can say whatever we like as in Parliament.
Yes. Actually, I know one way we can actually boost the number of viewers watching council meetings. If you go to the libraries and you put on a bunch of TVs and you put on the council meeting when it's on, your online audience number will at least double, if not triple.
It's a great idea. We'll steal that idea, shall we?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not going to ask for any repayment either. No. But if you do want live streaming services, we can talk. But my going rates are at least $100 an hour for the nice professional setup we have here. Yeah. Who had opened the last box?
I think it's one.
One. Okay.
No, we've had one.
No, who did it?
13. Yeah, I had the last one.
Oh, you had 13. Okay, sweet. Claire.
23.
20. Sorry, that's been taken. Would you like 19 or 25?
25.
That's good old age where your car insurance excess drops.
Oh yes, that's true.
Yes, I know. That's where I went from having went down from $800 down to $400 for simply being 25. Okay, we got Q for Queen Elizabeth II. What will you do to reduce flood risk and improve stormwater resilience in the Porirua Basin?
I think I've already covered that.
I think they're doing it as well. I think it's that thing between the railway tracks and the motorway.
Yeah, I think it's true. But what we do need to make sure what we have to make sure of is that it is for a long term. And my understanding is that's probably going to keep us safe for about 30 years, but not beyond that. So whatever we do, we have to make sure we save enough money to upgrade appropriately, not spend the money and forgetting that we're going to have to do some upgrades. And I think that's actually a mistake that successive councils have made throughout the country, just not remembering to put the money away to replace your asset and improve your asset. We're going to have a bigger population, so we have to make sure these things are sustainable and big enough. This guy's an engineer, so he'll be able to answer it much better than me.
Well, there's quite a bit they can do actually, because we've got options like grey water reuse to reduce the amount of water that goes into the stormwater and wastewater networks. Probably not enough of that going on, and of course, it's, that only happens at the pace new development happens, so it's a very incremental sort of thing. But in the Porirua stream, there's a couple of culverts which throttle stormwater, and I think there's a storage basin up the head of the catchment, which probably helps a little bit, but, you know, I think we need more storage basins down the Porirua stream, and we need to, for offline storage of water in flood times and things like that. Yeah, people should be moving to have detention. We can't impose detention on existing housing, but we kind of could be putting detention tanks in streets and other places there to sort of cut down. It's all about peak flows and management of peak flows and things into the streams there. So anything you do to sort of reduce the peak flow volumes will be beneficial. And there are a big variety of ways to do it, but they're all expensive. And I think council's got other priorities like replacing the water pipelines around the place so that we don't lose so much water.
And certainly not just have, I'm not sure if the rest of the Porirua had the upgrades, but I do know the contractor who was doing it, it's about 10 years ago now, doing Titahi Bay, but he said Titahi Bay would have brilliant water infrastructure on the Richter scale 10 earthquake, but the pipe coming in was a different story. Yeah. Phil, what box number?
15.
Yep, we can do 15, the old driver's license age. Okay, we got D for Delta. How willing are you to work with local hapu and iwi at a councillor level?
I've no problem with working with iwi and local hapu. I've worked with iwi and hapu in my previous lives as a surveyor, land development, and they inhabit our cities and have equal rights and say as all the rest of us there. So I don't see any. And so we've got the right to sort of exclude them or treat them any other way differently from what we treat ourselves. So I've got no problem, and they've always got something to contribute anyway. I think they've got a different language about how how the environment looks after, which is very useful, and it's something that we should take a lot more notice of, I think.
Okay, clear.
Yeah, so ko raki te manga, ko whenua ho te whenua, ko takatima te waka, ko kaitahu, taka iwi, ko tako, Claire Johnston. I look forward to building relationships with Ngāti Tawa and Te Atiawa. I've spent most of my career working alongside iwi and hapu, including establishing the first Māori Standing Committee for the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, the first in New Zealand. I've worked with Whanganui Māori on developing a tourism strategy for the river and creating a youth program for rangatahi. I worked on the Central North Island Forestry Settlement, working alongside Māori as part of my being, as part of who I am. I was nominated by Dame Tania Tyson Nathan, Rangamawahine, the CEO of Māori Tourism. I think we need a partnership with Māori, and I think we need a deeper partnership. Ngāti Tawa are a major economic force within our region. We must work alongside them. I actually think that the future of local authorities depends on these relationships, strong economic relationships, commercial relationships, personal relationships, and a deep respect for their knowledge of the whenua and of our seas.
Okay, now we normally would take a break now, but would you like to get to hard-hitting questions?
Yeah,
No.
Is that all good with Nick? Okay, sweet. That means we can pack down a little bit earlier. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll to roll on the hard-hitting questions graphics, please.
Hard-hitting questions! We're not gonna make a money. What does a question? Because every candidate has answered the hard-hitting questions.
Well, if I sort of count down there, the issues about water supply and water resilience are sort of getting passed over to the Metro Water, so there won't be much opportunity there. But emergency management, I think, is a really big thing. We're a very vulnerable sort of a city surrounded by water and a couple of 2 or 3 sort of significant earthquake fault lines traipsing through the city. So I think that, if any of those disasters happen through either any of those sort of means, the regional council is going to have a massive role to play. And, the damage to Wellington could be quite severe. So, I don't really want the regional council to lose the ball there, or lose sight of the importance of its role in sort of keeping the city going if we have a large event. And same with spatial planning as well. It's got a very important role in spatial planning because the city needs to continue to grow. It employs a lot of people. And for the health of the city with the housing turnover improvement and things, we can't lose sight of proper spatial planning and making sure that all our transportation corridors allow us to get to work easier and cheaper. And also looking forward into the future, try and set up transportation networks that are sort of single modal trips, and to avoid sort of the bus train type thing, which is necessary in some places, but ideally a single mode transport option to work would be the ideal thing. So we've got plenty of areas to grow and improve the city in, and the regional council will take a pretty big role in that, I think.
Claire.
Yeah, I actually think Centre Point is one of Greater Wellington's Regional Council's biggest opportunities. It gives us a chance to drive regional prosperity, it offsets rates, it boosts economic resilience, and it connects our region to global markets. Retaining full public ownership ensures that the profits stay local, decisions remain transparent, and long-term planning reflects community priorities, not private interests. Horizons are actually thinking about putting their shares up for sale. Greater Wellington has a chance to secure full control and needs to think about that and whether we can afford to do it. Centreport isn't just a port, it's a leverage for smarter growth. We can use that to leverage the economic stability in this region. There's over 1,000 ships visiting annually and strong links to freight, logistics and export industries. We could build this more. Public ownership, there's an advantage in retaining full public ownership. Strategic control, with Horizons considering a sale, we've got a rare opportunity, and we can integrate our infrastructure. It's really important that we're able to connect people, freight and sea.
And before we get on to hard-hitting question number 2, just a cheeky supplementary since you talked about Centreport. Would you be open to more cruise ships coming into Wellington?
We've actually lost some cruise ships in recent times, and there's not as many bookings from what I can understand for next year. So that's quite worrying. It actually really does affect the economy. We need to think about how we can get those cruise ships coming back here. And again, when I think about the regional council, we have to think more carefully about what our assets are for the future. Our reserves, for example, can we make more of the reserves? How can we get people out into the wider region? To me, it's really important. I'm concerned that we've actually lost some of those shipping lines. That's a really big impact. I look at the port every day as well, and I think continually, how can we make more of what's crossing our port? I mean, it's just chock-a-block with logs at the moment as I look out the window every day and think that pile's not getting any smaller. But I didn't realise just how important that port is until I had to sit beside it for the last 6 years and watch its movement going in and out and watch the huge containers. So I'm quite focused on the port. I think it's a jewel in our crown.
Well,
yeah, I think there's room for more cruise ships in there.
Yeah.
We know we're near the limit. And if you look at the number of ships that cruise through Tauranga every year, they've often got 2 parked in there at the same time. And we've got plenty of wharf space for that as well.
Yeah.
And then it supports so many small operators like the bus operators and the little tourism operators around the place. So it's a very important part of the economy. And if we can get 60 ships a year or somewhere or in a season, I think we're doing very well.
always was wondering whether we would ever get the day where a cruise ship will come in that will clash with Newtown Festival and suddenly you'll have an extra, a couple of thousand encroach onto Newtown.
I'll only take a phone call, you might be right.
Yeah. Well, I am the treasurer of the Newtown Residents Association, so there are some perks of being in there and there are some good contacts, but that doesn't mean we lobby cruise ship companies to come in. But it will be a nice fun part to put in. Okay, let's get on to hard-hitting question number 2. What are your top 3 priorities? Claire.
So reliable, affordable, well-connected transport systems for people and goods. I think that's absolutely essential. Sustainable, resilient water management and protection and restoration of waterways and harbours. We have to look after our environment and put much more effort in there. There's, of course, many more things that I think are priorities than those 3, but I think if we could at least manage those, we're doing the core role of the Regional Council.
Okay.
Yeah, my 3 priorities are the rates to the harbour and the quality of the waters around our streams. The Regional Council rates increased by 55% in the last 3 years, which is quite a lot. Another 11.8% for Porirua this year. And fortunately, the environment for rates caps and that kind of stuff is pretty strong at the moment, and everybody be well aware of that. And I think the Regional Council has to follow in the same footsteps that the government's thinking and to keep them down at a lower level. So maybe some more disciplined attention to the accounts and the projects around the place is needed. In the harbour, as you know by now, I don't want to see the harbour silted up, and I'm building a little wee boat in my garage at the moment to row around the Paranui Inlet, and I'm scared that when I get it out there, it's going to be running aground all the time, so it's not going to be much fun. Yeah, and like the Porirua stream, when heavy rains, it's pretty brown, and that's depositing a lot of silt into the harbour as well. So, and that's affecting the habitat. Ngāti Tawa used to collect oysters and mussels and stuff up and down the harbour and stuff, and that's all gone. So, the only way we're ever going to get that restored back to the harbour is to sort of, clean up the streams that filter into the harbour and things. So, plenty to do there.
Okay, and let's get on to hard-hitting question number 3. Now, I do understand this mentions Wellington City Council, not Porirua City Council, but we can also add Porirua City Council into it. What is your position on retaining Wellington City Council's Te Whanganui-a-Tara Māori Ward and Greater Wellington Regional Council's Te Upoko i Te Ika a Maui Māori Constituency, and why do you hold that view? Phil?
I'm very strongly in support of the Maori wards. I think Maori's affinity with the land and the water and the sky is pretty fantastic. And as I said before, they've got a beautiful language about caring for our living environment and the ecology and natural habitats that go with it. And we don't really talk about it enough. And so I always enjoy talking to Maori people about the environment within the opportunities that are provided by their language, and they've got a fantastic role to play in how our city develops. And I wouldn't want to see that diminished.
Claire?
Yeah, I support Māori wards. Māori are major contributors to our economy through investment partnerships and leadership. I think the business acumen of Ngāti Tawa and Kaitahu are evident in their strategic investments, which is why I'm quite sure that we have to have much better partnerships with them. These iwi, not only are they guardians of the whenua and the moana, they are sophisticated. This isn't about tokenism when we have Māori wards. It's not about an easy way in, it's about a genuine partnership. If we want to walk alongside Māori and shaping the future of Aotearoa, we must commit to building and honouring their leadership. Ignoring this opportunity would leave us poorer, not just economically, but in spirit and in vision. Māori leadership and partnerships may be among the most powerful assets local government has. When I look at the leadership of Ngāti Tawa and my own iwi, I see the colour of people who absolutely should be at the local government table. The future of our country depends on it.
Okay, Now let's get time for closing statements on why the Porirua-Tawa voters should give you their number one vote, their first preference vote. Sorry, better get it the right way around. I'm clear.
Thanks. I'd like you to give the first preference vote to me because I'm passionate about the region, but I think more importantly, I've got the background and the experience. I've worked for local government and central government. I know this region inside out. I know the role of the regional council. But I really want this region to succeed. I want the regional council to do the best for its people, and the role they play is so important. So in many ways, it's not so much about me, it's actually the role of the regional council. And I think that you need people at the table that actually understand what it means to protect your environment, to protect your public transport, to make sure that you have the water, to make sure you have the emergency management, and to make sure that we thrive as a region. And I think you need people that are sound with policy, really good decision makers, independent of thought, and also understand the fiscal environment that we're operating in. Vote for me, number one.
Okay, Phil.
All right, I'm happy to be one and I'm two.
Well, we'll work well together, so that's it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, as you know, I'm sort of quite strong on the environment and stuff, the protection of our harbour and our waterways and things like that. And I've got a strong technical background developed over my career as a surveyor. I've worked on land development projects all over the top half of North Island and Dubai and Mexico as well. So I kind of know where the solutions lie for a lot of our problems, and I know where to go to find the solutions. And then at a governance level, I've been president of a bowling club for a couple of years, and I was vice president of the Institute of Surveyors for a couple of years and 7 years on the board there. So I understand the role of governance and how important it is. And for the Institute of Surveyors, I was instrumental in changing and remodelling the whole management structure of the Institute. So I know about how governance works, and I can distinguish between governance and operational issues quite easily. So I'm looking for your vote so that I can sort of apply all the skills and the background and belief systems that I've got to improving Wellington for one and all, at a regional scale as well as at a local level as well.
Okay. Now let's get off to the fun part of housekeeping. The Porirua-Tawa constituency voters will be using the voting system single transferable vote. Since this is a two-position ward, in order for a candidate to reach, to get elected, they must achieve above the quota, which is worked out by the total number of positions that are available plus 1 divided by the total number of votes. And then that will be your quota. Now, here's an example of what happens when a candidate gets over the quota. If a candidate reaches over the quota, say they received 1,000 votes, but they only needed 650 votes to get elected, 0.65% of their first preference votes remain with them, and 0.35 will be redistributed to their second preference candidates. Hence why you might see sometimes all these random point numbers when it comes to voting redistributions. If that is a redistribution that comes from the top, and when it comes from the bottom, it is a total vote redistribution with the lowest polling candidate being eliminated and having their votes redistributed. In order for a candidate to achieve the vote in this constituency, they have to achieve approximately 34% of the vote plus 1. So that gives an idea of how many votes that we have. So when it comes to ranking, please make sure that it's not just your number one preference votes, but it's your 2s, your 3s, your 4s, and I think you can go up to 5 because there's 5 candidates. That's correct. Yeah. And the other one here is it's in the Ballot Productions as an independent non-profit organisation. We run on small dollar donations to keep things going. Today, costs to run this It's in the Ballot show is a $50 venue hire, which is probably one of our cheapest to have on there. $14 to sit there and have the Starlight dish as our people in here can sit and see on the roof of my van. $31 for the restreaming hosting services, and $100 allowance for the fuel budget. Normally we have $100 per vehicle, but I've taken my vehicle out of the mix in there, considering I base for one of my jobs is actually in Granada North, which is actually within the around the corner from Tawa, and we also have a budget of $50 for refreshments to keep our crew well nourished while they're on the show, which tonight was fish and chips from the Tawa Fish Supply. I think that's what the name of the fish and chip shop was. Very good fish and chips, very good fish. I will, if you're in Tawa, feel free to sit there and stop there. You might bump into Lynn from Tawa while you're there. Okay. If you'd like to sit there and support It's in the Ballot Productions, you can always head to our website and go onto itsinthaballot.nz/donate, and you can get our bank account number and put in a donation direct into the It's in the Ballot Productions bank account. You can also go to Eventbrite and do a koha without admission and put a donation in that way. You can also go to our Give a Little page and put in a donation on there. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching this live, you can always do a super chat. And if you're watching later on, you can use the option of a super thanks. And you can do that, and you can always be helpful to buy one of our many different merchandise that are out there. And our merchandise is printed by Print Mighty, based at Lindale on the Kapiti Coast. If we're about supporting local small manufacturers in the whole process of making everything work. I'd like to thank our candidates for participating on It's in the Ballot. It's not easy to jump in front of a video camera and answer questions to a live audience who will be able to watch this between now and election day. I'd like to also thank our audience for I'm now getting the dry throat. For being there doing the clapping. Also like to sit there and thank our crew, which has got Nick, who's in the studio with me. I got Laura, who's been our remote editor, coming all the way from a lovely town, north of Masterton. And also for Stacey, who has done the graphics, and the many different other people in the team. Helen for doing the questions, Carol for doing the playing cards online, all that sort of stuff, trying to keep everything all afloat. Tomorrow, if you'd like to watch our It's in the Ballot shows, we're going to be in Ikitahuna. And we've got the Ikitahuna Community Board at 3 p.m, the South Ward for the Tawa District Council at 4 p.m, and we've got what's the name of their Māori ward? Always fun with these Māori wards because they all are very different, and I'm pretty sure Laura's going to be typing that in the chat in the private chat as we speak, because Laura is a voter of that constituency. But sorry. Oh, no such thing. It's Tamaki Nui Anua Māori Ward is the name of the Tawa District Council's Māori Ward. Tomorrow I'll have it a hell of a lot more better pronounced. So if you'd like to sit there and enjoy that, you can join us tomorrow at 3, 4, or 7 p.m. Now, just before we go, I want a bit of a fluff question. If you were to come to my coffee cart bean here at Newtown Market on a Saturday, what type of coffee would you purchase? Claire?
Flat white.
Phil?
Oh, probably macchiato or something like that.
Oh, that is a bit different.
You haven't had one for a while, so.
So the one who likes the pleasure of the long black, but still likes the frothy milk on top.
The one.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's it for a night. Please hit the closing credits, Nick.